Okay, I'm recording, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're live now to get started?
We're not live anywhere, I'm just recording.
Yeah, but live for the meeting.
Yes.
So would like to call this meeting to order. Would someone from council be willing to read the acknowledgement on Treaty 6?
Sure. We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
And before going further, I just wanted to issue a statement. This evening, I'll be issuing a statement regarding personal opinions of council members and our official town council position on any matter from our town council spokesperson. Town council members of any municipality are free to voice their public opinion. However, the official opinion for any municipal council comes from the council as a whole, spoken through the town official spokesperson, not the CAO or individual council members. I just wanted to ensure that the general public and the news media are aware of this. This is mandated by the provincial government MGA document, the main spokesperson for the municipality, unless that duty is delegated to another councillor. And I'd also like to remind our council that we all signed the town council code of conduct as to how we conduct ourselves in the public as mandated by the Alberta provincial government. So thank you for listening, and we can continue. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration has one, 8.5, FCM grant application.
FCM grant application. And that's going to be 8.5.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And is there anything else from council? I would like to add one, if we could make it 8.6, it would be a motion for administration to fund opportunities to assess the town ability to fund future capital projects in the absence of provincial funding. There's provincial grant funding available for this type of scenario, and it would be prudent to make use of that money given the circumstances and potential changes in the future. So that'd be 8.6. Is that okay?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And I would like to have a motion from council to approve the agenda as amended.
I can bring that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Pat.
Pat, you're on mute, Pat.
Pat, you're muted.
Sorry, Councillor Pat, you are muted.
All right, now. All right, I'd like to move that council adopt the agenda with the additions that were added on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pat. Anyone opposed to the motion, please say aye. So none opposed, then the motion is carried. Thank you. Delegations, we don't have any. Fire Prevention Week proclamation. Whereas the town of Bruderheim recognizes the importance of fire prevention in Alberta, and whereas the goal of fire prevention is to educate the public about the importance of fire prevention, whereas the safety of our community is the responsibility of each and every one of us, and we must prepare now and learn how to secure a strong and healthy tomorrow. Therefore, I, Carl Hook, Mayor, do hereby proclaim the week of October 4th to 10th, 2020 to be Fire Prevention Week in the town of Bruderheim, and we encourage all citizens to participate in educational activities on emergency preparedness. The theme of Fire Prevention Week 2020 is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen. So I can sign that one off. And we have the International Day of Older Persons Proclamation. We want to celebrate all of our citizens. So whereas the province of Alberta recognizes the experience, contributions, and wisdom of seniors, and whereas the declaration of International Day of Older Persons would give an opportunity to build greater awareness, understanding, and appreciation for seniors, and whereas an International Day of Older Persons will stand as an important annual occasion to celebrate the strength and community connections of seniors in a province, therefore I, Carl Hook, Mayor, do hereby declare October 1st, 2020 as International Day of Older Persons in the town of Bruderheim. And I can sign that one off. Thank you for listening. Moving along, we are at 6.1, adopt minutes of September 2nd, 2020 regular meeting of council. Looking for a motion from council.
I
can make that
move.
Mayor.
Oh,
Go.
I think Deputy Mayor Judy.
No.
Open first.
Go ahead, Judy. Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the minutes of September 2nd, 2020, regular meeting of council.
Thank you for that motion. Anyone opposed to that motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. 6.1 is done. Moving on to council priorities, information requests. We'd like to start with Councillor Pat.
You're on mute, Pat.
Still muted there, Councillor Pat.
I have
There you
no
go.
request. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, and Deputy Mayor Judy. I think Judy
Whoops,
is.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor George. Still muted. Yeah,
I
there
have
you go.
nothing at this time.
Thank you, Councillor George. Councillor Len.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councillor
Just one follow-up. Last week I was at the skate park and I didn't see the sign up there about a week or so ago about the water for kids. Has that been put up recently? The
Mr.
do not
Mayor,
drinking sign?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, yeah, I actually did that myself about 10 days ago, I think. I can double check
Okay.
if it's not there, but yeah, I actually put it there myself.
Okay, okay, then that's probably about the time frame. So that's about a week and a half ago I was there. So okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Anything else?
No, that's everything.
Okay, Councillor Dan.
Nothing for me at this time. Thanks.
Okay, I have a couple of things to ask about. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to those who look after the beautiful floral displays in town. They're simply gorgeous, and I look forward to a nice fall so that we can keep enjoying them. And a big thank you to those folks that are behind the scenes doing all the work in town to make our town look great. Thank you for that. Also want to say a big thank you for those for setting up this evening's rec board members gifts and sign off from their years of hard work for the town. It was very nice plaques. Thank you for doing that. I would also like to record a request that we ensure that our CAO Patty get a town credit card so she doesn't have to use her personal credit card to purchase items for the town anymore. Fortunately this year, or unfortunately, I guess depending on your point of view, we haven't had many events where items had to be purchased, but this would be, I think, a prudent and transparent way of doing things to have a town credit card for CAO Patty so she doesn't have to use her personal credit card to purchase stuff for the town. And I believe that's all that I had. Oh, yeah, the final thing is a business directory for the town website. For some reason, one of the businesses in town noticed that the business directory seems to be missing from the town website. And they were asking what happened to that. And I wanted to make sure that I bring that to the administration to take a look at what happened to the business directory. Apparently people do pay attention to that website, and they noticed that the website didn't have the business directory. So thanks for that. Did anyone else from council have any other information requests? Okay, moving on to program requests. We can go in reverse order. Councillor Dan.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wayne.
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Len.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councillor George.
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Pat.
Nothing at this.
And Deputy Mayor Judy.
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Thank you. So we're finished with the council priorities. Request for decisions 8.1 3CIS Tower Extension.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with information related to the extension to the height of the communication tower located behind the Carol Mushmire Arena. The Town Council direct administration to prepare and submit a letter of concurrence to 3CIS to allow the communication tower located behind the Carol Mushmeyer Arena to be 45 meters in height. Jay Candy representation from 3CIS presented information to Council on September 2019. On July 21st, 2020, Administrative received an email from Jay Candy of 3CIS requesting the letter of concurrence from Town of Bruderheim Town Council to support their request to extend the height of the communication tower located behind the Carol Mushmeyer Arena to a height of 45 meters. This will allow other communication providers access to the tower to provide services to residents and businesses in the area. In speaking with Jay Candy, 3CIS representative, it was confirmed that there will be a 150-foot anti-climb structure around the base of the tower. Currently, there's a smaller one in place at the existing tower. Strategic plan areas. A community is educated on responsibilities, limitation of council administration. Summary, 3CIS has already submitted their documentation to Navigation and Transport Canada for approval, and the only thing the approval was hinging on was a letter of concurrence from the Town of Bruderheim. There's a timeline for the paperwork to be fully submitted, after which they will have to start the process over again. Once their application is approved by Navigation and Transport Canada, they have 3 years to build the tower. The letter of support for non-support will be forwarded to Jay Candy, 3CIS for the follow-up. Council will receive updates as administration receives them.
Thank you. I have to apologize. For some reason, I thought we had already done this, but I guess we hadn't done any kind of approval from council yet for this?
No, Mr.
Am I
Mayor.
wrong?
No,
Okay.
we did.
So looking for a motion from council to direct administration to prepare and submit a letter of concurrence.
Sure.
Would someone from council be willing to make that motion? Councilor Ray?
Sure. The Town Council direct administration to prepare and submit a letter of concurrence to 3CIS to allow the communication tower located behind the Carol Mushmeyer Arena to be 45 meters in height.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? I think the presentation that we had before probably says it all. That's why we're not getting too many questions. So if we're not got any concerns right now, then call for anyone to be in opposition to this motion. And hearing none, then the motion is carried and we can move on to 8.2. Thank you. 8.2, ATCO Gas and Pipeline franchise fees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with the opportunity to review the current ATCO Gas and Pipeline Ltd. franchise fees. The Town Council direct administration to start the process for increasing the 2021 ATCO Gas and Pipeline Ltd. franchise fee from 15% to 20%. The Town of Bruderheim created a natural gas distribution service agreement with ATCO Gas and Pipelines Limited on May 9, 1956. This agreement was extended to 10 and 20-year increments. On March 16, 2016, the most recent agreement was approved by Council as Bylaw 34, 2015. The franchise fees were 10% and then increased to 15% with the most recent bylaw in 2015. The current franchise fee structure forecast for 2021 franchise fee revenue is $55,503 with the current 15%. The Alberta Utilities Commission has capped electrical franchise fees at 20% and natural gas franchise fees at 35%. At the September 2nd, 2020 meeting, Town Council requested administration research what the monthly impact would be to residents and businesses if the franchise fee were to be increased to 20%. Strategic plan areas, a committee that is educated on responsibilities and limitation of council administration. Legal impacts, Municipal Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, Section 45, and the Alberta Utilities Commission. The municipality is responsible for establishing the level of the fee through the franchise agreement with its distribution company. However, the Alberta Utilities Commission must approve the franchise agreement. Once approved, the distribution company is then able to recover those costs from its customers. ATCO Gas and Pipelines Ltd. provided a letter dated August 25, 2020, advising the Town of Bruderheim Chief Administrative Officer, Patty Pettibrazzi, that November 1st, 2020 is the deadline for requesting an increase to the franchise fees for 2021. An increase to 20% franchise fee would mean $74,004 in franchise revenue, which is an increase of $18,501. This would translate to an increase of approximately $26.33 a year, or $202.19 a month to increase the franchise fee from 15 to 20. We are required to notify the residents of our community of any changes to the franchise fee percentage to be assessed. The changes must be advertised for 2 weeks in the local newspaper and other forms of communication used within the communities, along with a letter that would be sent to the Alberta Utilities Commission advising them of any proposed changes to the existing agreement for their approval.
Thank you. So we
sorry to
had asked
interrupt.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Patty, you cut out right when you said the monthly average. Can you repeat that for me, please?
Absolutely. An increase to 20% franchise fee would mean $74,004 in franchise fee revenue, which is an increase of $18,501. This would translate to an increase of approximately $26.33 a year, or $2.19 a month, to increase the franchise fee from 15 to 20. So my
Perfect.
calculations at the last meeting were right. I just forgot to divide by 12. So it's $26 a year per resident on an average consumption rate. And we've attached the breakdown from ATCO.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get a clarification, Pat. It doesn't say specifically. So that increase of approximately $26.30 a year, or $219 a month per household, per average household, or?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you look at the attachment from ATCO Gas,
Yep.
the average, that's the average that they're predicting for our community. So some will be less, some will be higher, depending on consumption.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that information? I don't think we have a motion, or no, we need a motion first. Who would be willing to make that motion?
I can make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
The Town Council directs administration to start the process for increasing the 2021 ATCO Gas and Pipeline Limited franchise fee from 15% to 20%.
Any comments, questions, or concerns that need to be voiced from council in regards to this motion?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
I want to know what ATCO Gas is charging us for administration of this here franchise feed.
Is there an administration fee for this, CEO, Pat? Do you know?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe there is. They send out the bills, they collect the money.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
are there any restrictions for this money to be used, or is it, can you just clarify what it's used for?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, we currently have a reserve in place. It's funded by the franchise fees. It's used for underground utility improvements.
But it's strictly for utilities, underground utilities, right?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council?
I'd
Yeah.
like to raise a,
I believe.
Go ahead, Pat.
Pat.
Oh, go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
okay, is this not, was the council meeting?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. Could you please repeat that, Councillor Pat?
Is this motion not the same one that we voted on and defeated at the last council meeting? The same wording, everything's the same. It's not been rescinded, it's the same motion.
I believe the information was corrected so that we know the correct amount per average household. We didn't have that information before. Is that correct, CAO Pat?
So, Mr. Mayor, we made a motion for administration to come back with more information.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And so we got that information now. So we didn't have that information last time we voted on this. Is there any other comments,
Yes,
questions, or concerns?
I have a concern. I would support it if this went into general revenue. Will help us in the hard times. But if it's just going into reserve, which we're probably not going to use in years and years, I can't support it. Right now, it's taxing the people more money to put into reserve doesn't make any sense to me at all. If we were going to use this money, we should put it into direction of operating costs, because right now we're under the gun to get our budget aligned. So at this time, I cannot support it.
Thank you, Councillor Lynn. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor Wayne?
CEO Patty, do you know how much is in the fund already? And is it allocated?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Lecco, I don't know off the top of my head, and the money, of course, will probably, it's not allocated, but we'll be looking for funding for our reserve expansion or the force line. So one of those two larger projects will probably come to council. So the idea is that we build up a substantial amount of money in that reserve, right? So it's not used for maintenance, it's for large infrastructure improvements. But again, council can revisit that reserve policy if they wish and modify how that franchise fee is allocated, absolutely.
And that can be, that the allocation can be changed at a later date. It's not a restricted. Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Lecco, no, council can decide what they're going to use the funding for.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council on that motion? Councillor
Patty,
George?
can you tell me what the average household is paying right now per year?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it looks like the annual fee, well, that they're forecasting for 2021 would be $78.99 if it was the current 15%. If it goes up, it's $105.32.
Yes, thank
Per
you,
year.
Deputy Mayor. If you look on that sheet, the historic information, Councillor Falardo just pointed out to me, it's got the annual fees, average residential customer using 115 gigajoules. So 80 to 100 is probably a good guesstimate. You have, or 70 to 100, you probably have the low and the high of that.
Yeah.
That's per year.
Yeah, or no month, please, wouldn't that be?
Okay.
Per year.
Yeah.
It's an annual fee.
Oh, right, per year.
Daniel?
Okay.
Councillor
you.
Campbell, your question was per month?
No, per annual fee.
So yeah, the annual fees are listed on that sheet. So again, it's all based on consumption.
George, are you curious about the annual consumption that people are using right now?
No, I was just curious about what the average household was paying in franchise fees. The reasoning I'm questioning it is that if we're not in need of that extra revenue, and we're putting it into a fund, then I don't think we should be asking our ratepayers for an increase. Our ratepayers right now are struggling as it is. It doesn't seem much, but for those who have income or working, it's not much. But for those that are struggling, every dollar counts. That's my feedback to the council and administration. $2 and some cents a month isn't going to break me, but might be a hardship for others.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. CEO Patty, you alluded to some potential uses for that money here in the next coming year or two, or whatever time frame. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we could absolutely revisit how franchise fees are used. Council could look at 50% going to reserves for future infrastructure upgrades and 50% to subsidize recreation. We do have a 20,000 shortfall with Lamont County this year. They could also allocate it to the reservoir. They could allocate it to anything they want. The full franchise fee does not have to go into one reserve. It can be split up 5 ways, 10 ways, 1 way. So totally up to council. We are seeing that, I mean, recreation is definitely on the shortfall this year for sure. Definitely where I'm struggling to keep our buildings going with all the extra restrictions with the COVID. The reserve could be a one-time transfer. We could still put it in the reserve. Council can still make a motion. Just because it's in that reserve doesn't mean a council can't make a motion to transfer it to something different, right?
Yeah, and you do have infrastructure needs coming in the next foreseeable time frame. You alluded to that. Something about the force main, you said?
Yeah, forcing the reservoir and definitely looking at doing something on 45th between the CP and CN tracks to help those residents out with the standing water there. So yeah, I see some definite infrastructure upgrades coming in the next year or two for sure.
Thank you. Is there any other comments, questions? Councillor Dan, you have your hand up?
Yeah. So this is based on consumption only. So realistically, with that mindset, this could incentivize people to basically watch that consumption, correct?
Well, anytime costs are going up for something and you have a way to try to alleviate that, then I know that people are always looking to try to save some money, and that follows and makes sense what you're saying there. If folks are in a position to be able to do that.
Mayor, or Councillor Scooswell through Mayor Carl, absolutely, that's correct. So you'd probably have the single person living in a dwelling would be closer to the dollar side a month, and a family of 6 or 7 would probably be closer to $3 or $4 a month, right? Based on consumption.
So yeah, there's a few things that can affect this. There's obviously the big one, which is heating, but there's also heating hot water, fireplaces, on and on and on. There's a ton of uses for natural gas that people could technically cut back on. Yeah, I'm a little torn about this. I'm not gonna lie. I know that we are struggling as far as budget concerns go, and with what you guys have said, I understand that this isn't going straight into it. For now, it's going into a reserve, but we can pull from that reserve if we need to. I'd almost rather have the money than not, than go, where are we getting this from? Because otherwise we're gonna have to start cutting services. And what do you want to say? Like, you guys can't have this, because we wanted to keep everything status quo. If we keep everything status quo, we're going to wind up getting into trouble. We're going to wind up not having the money for things that we need. We're not going to have the reserves for things that we need. And then I would hate to see what our residents say then. I understand that it's $2, but where else does it come from?
Thank you for that, Councillor.
I have something to say about
George,
that.
is that you?
Yep. We can't be going always to our ratepayers when we are in trouble. We have to start looking around and start doing things a little different. Every time we get into a little bit of a bind or something, we start looking at the ratepayers. We can't be doing that all the time. We got to start thinking out our problems a little bit more than who's going to foot the bill. Maybe we're going to have to start looking at cutting services. Maybe we're going to have to start doing things differently. But it's just something to think about. We are in a tight bind right now, and maybe we can't do all the things that we've always done. Maybe we're going to have to do things better, cheaper.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. I look forward to hearing more of those concrete thoughts on how the town can achieve those things. I know that this year has been very tough for our administration to try to keep things going, and we're very inventive in keeping the costs down and trying to maintain some level of service. So if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns from council, we can entertain a vote now. Who is not in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. So that's 3 opposed, and in favor, please raise your hand. And so that's 4 in favor, so the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you for a great discussion. That's not an easy decision. Next up is 8.3 fees and charges bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information on amending the 2020 fees and charges. The town council give first reading to bylaw 13-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 13-2019. User fees, rates, and charges for some municipal services change throughout the budget year. Residents and stakeholders rely on the municipality to provide a wide variety of programs, services, and infrastructure. To support the services that contribute to quality of life in the region, the municipality depends on revenue from property taxes and user fee rates and charges. Although municipal services are typically available to everyone, the costs of service are recovered by different forms of revenue that are determined by the type of service. User fee rates and charges are paid by the residents who directly use and benefit from municipal services that are not fully supported by tax dollars. Charging these fees to the individual user helps the municipality recover some of those direct costs associated with providing the service. Council gave final reading to Bylaw 13-2019 on December 18, 2019. Council passed Bylaw 09-2020 on May 6, 2020 to amend Bylaw 13-2019 to include updating general administrative fees, adding public works fees for services, and changing the Bruderheim Water Co-op to read as per service agreement. Strategic plan areas, ensuring that we keep our user fees and charges fair based on a consumption and cost to deliver services, ensure ratepayers can remain sustainable. Annual audits of service levels and delivery fees and charges ensure the existing and future infrastructure needs are budgeted for. A community that is educated on the responsibilities and limitation of council and administration, Municipal Government Act, RSA 200 M26, Section 7 bylaws. Summary. There are 2 customers affected by this amendment to the 2020 fees and charges. As you know, utilities are fully funded through the user, so we do annual audits to ensure the cost for service is being collected. With the occupancy rates below average in the entire province, administration discovered that there was inequity in what was being charged at a flat rate for the multi-use residential dwellings and what the actual consumption rate was. Administration has done an analysis of several municipalities to determine a more equitable fee structure for utilities provided by the town. Administration has already begun the process of reviewing the user fee and charges for the 2021 fees and charges bylaw that will include an extensive review of existing utilities fees and charges.
Thank you for that. So we'll be looking for a motion from council for the first reading of Bylaw 13-2020. Someone be willing to make that motion? Councillor Pat? I'm sorry, you're muted, Councillor Pat. There you go.
I move that town council give first reading to bylaw 13-2020, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 13-2019.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council on that motion? Councillor
I
Lamb.
support this motion. I think it's a very good motion. It's about time, and I'm sure the business owners will be appreciated themselves. So I think that's a good one.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Anybody else comment, question, or concern? Not hearing anything. I do have one question for administration. So we passed this motion. Does this make the changes retroactive at all?
Mr. Mayor, no, it doesn't. There would be a separate council motion. It would be effective the day of passing, so it still has to have second and third reading. And then administration would come to council for consideration of reimbursement of charges that have already been paid.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Thank you for that. Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council on this motion? Okay, having heard none. Those that are not in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. And none opposed to the motion, so the motion is carried. Thank you. So that's 8.3. 8.4, prioritize rural connectivity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration would like to provide council with information related to the request for the federal government to prioritize rural connectivity in the upcoming speech from the throne on September 23rd, 2020. The Town Council direct administration to prepare a letter to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, requesting that the federal government prioritize rural connectivity in the upcoming speech from the throne on September 23rd.
Thank you for that. So we'll be looking for a motion from council to prioritize direct administration to prepare a letter. Sorry. Councillor Dan?
Yep, for sure. I move that council directs administration to prepare a letter requesting that the Prime Minister prioritize rural connectivity in the upcoming speech from the throne on September 23rd, 2020.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dan. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion?
I have a question.
Councillor Len and then Deputy Mayor Judy. Go ahead,
Well,
Councillor.
I think we should send a letter off to the province too, since they're cutting AISH. They should have some money left over for us to do this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Len. But pertaining to this motion, do you have any comments directly to this?
Well, I do, because I think we should send a letter off to the province and say, since they're cutting everything, they'll have more than enough money to do this conductivity.
Thanks for that, Councillor Len. Deputy Mayor
I guess
G.
I have one question. Are we considered rural? Because from what I believe, we're remote rural from the different organizations that we touch because of our population base and stuff. We're considered remote rural. Is that, will it affect us, I guess, is the whole question.
So I do know that we were asked by a large corporation that tell us to help get the plight of rural Alberta out there on rural connectivity, and this is one way of doing that to help out us, whether we're rural this or rural that. I'm not sure on the splitting of hairs of that portion of it. Maybe administration knows something about it.
Mr. Mayor, as far as rural connectivity, we are considered rural.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, all those that would be opposed, please raise your hand or say aye. So none opposed, and the motion's carried. Thank you. That's 8.4. So we're on to 8.5 FCM grant application. CEO Patty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to make this addition. It was a pretty quick turnaround grant from the government. So the idea is to provide council with information related to the application for funding through, just a minute, Mr. Mayor, I have to make sure everybody's muted here. The council direct administration submitted an application from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for an assessment of the East Central Stormwater System. Be it therefore resolved that Town of Bruderheim commits to conducting the following activities as opposed to projects submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities: to purchase LiDAR evaluation data, conduct detailed topographic surveys, set up a stormwater model and identifying existing drainage conditions, identify and assess existing flood risk, incorporate the new land development within the model, identify upstream and downstream catchments and drainage features, provide proposed improvements and cost estimates, compile the results and data into an overall report. Be it further resolved that the Town of Bruderheim commits $12,500 from its budget toward the cost of the initiative if our application is successful. The Master Services Plan conducted in 2014 identified the area between CP&C and railways along the Highway 45 as an area that needed further investigation. This area experiences localized flooding that has to be manually pumped when we receive any pressure on our existing stormwater system. The quality of a good asset management plan includes the assessment and evaluation of existing infrastructure with plans to fund the maintenance and improvement of its design. This assessment is necessary to identify the capital funding needed to address stormwater improvements and cost estimates. If we are successful in our application, we would come back to council to have a motion of council from which reserve to fund the municipal portion of the study. We would advertise the successful funding through FCM on social media and our website.
Okay, thank you. How does the motion actually read? Is someone able to get a paper copy?
I've got a paper copy. I can read it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's very specific on the funding model, what the motion must look like. So, Mr. Mayor, just this would do an overall assessment on the Highway 45 drainage ditch. As you know, the water's trapped there, and would provide us opportunity to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to fund fixing that infrastructure. And 50,000 would come from the government, and we would be committing 12,500 if we were successful in the full funding of the application.
Great. So, Councillor Pat, please, could you?
Okay. I move that Town Council directs administration to submit an application from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Assessment Management Program for an assessment of the East Central Stormwater System. Be it therefore resolved that the town of Bruderheim commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program. Provide DAR elevation data. Conduct detailed topographic survey. Set up stormwater model and identify existing drainage conditions. Identify and assess existing flood risks. Incorporate the new land development SWM plan within the model. Identify upstream and downstream catchments and drainage features. Provide proposed improvements and cost estimates. Compile the results data into an overall report. Be it further resolved that the town of Bruderheim commits $12,500 from its budget toward the cost of the initiative if our application is successful.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pat. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council on this motion? Councillor Len, then Councillor Dan.
That has been a problem for many, many years, but I understand that previously that is part of the province's issue with
You
the
need to
drainage from
mute
down
your
there.
mic.
That's part of the problem from the province's water coming down the hill, not our water. And that I think they should be somehow contributing to that study, because it's their water we're going to be handling and taking care of. So I think we should send a letter off to the, I don't know, they used to call it resource management at one time, or water management, to see if they can assist us with the $12,000 to study their water.
Yeah, this money would be coming from the province. Is that correct, CAO Pat?
Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Falardo, yeah, the $50,000 would be funded by the government. And we would be 12,000. So we definitely would be less than half, that's for sure.
Okay. Any Deputy Mayor?
So a couple questions. So FCM, isn't that federal, Patty? If I'm not mistaken, FCM is federal. And so if we're going to do the study, can we, I guess my next question would lead to, can we use it so that when we're negotiating with the government to do their portion, we can give them, and then they know what it's going to cost them to do the job for us? Provincial government.
So Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor, all the FCM grants are vetted through the province first. So it's like the federal government gives FCM all the money and then they distribute to the provinces. The province approves, says, yes, this is a viable project. And then it goes on to the federal government for approval with the rest of the applications from across Canada, if that helps.
Okay, Councillor Dan, I think you had your hand up.
Yep, absolutely. So we're not actually investing this $12,500 until it's been okayed that it is a viable project, correct?
So Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Scooswell, yes. So if the grant, if you pass this motion and we are successful on the $50,000, council is committed to the $12,500. That's what the motion's for. They don't, the government doesn't want to give you the 50 and then you go, actually, we don't want to commit. So the funding would come from the utilities reserve. We would take it out of perhaps the franchise fees.
And with that said, so the $62,500 will just go into a study on how much it's going to cost to fix this? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand how everything lines up here.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Schools, those great questions. So it would evaluate what our existing conditions are with the stormwater overland drainage system in that area. And then it would also give us proposed improvements and what those costs would be.
Would
And
those
so,
be costs that we would incur?
So, Mr. Mayor, through Council Schools, well, we can't apply for any grants unless we know what it's going to cost to fix something. So it's kind of like we just got the grant to do a study on the water reservoir. Once that's completed, then I can apply for funding, because then they say, here's the solution. And so this would be the same way. Once we have a solution, then I can watch for grants, for infrastructure grants, and we're shovel ready to go, saying this is what it's going to cost, or we could do phases of it over our own 5-year capital plan. There's lots of options, but right now nobody knows how to improve the existing without doing a extensive study, right?
Gotcha. No, I completely understand now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good question. Good clarification. Councillor George, you have your hand up?
Yeah, this study, does it entail the water flow from the, up the hemp area down to the very east area of that, east end of that area? And if so, how is that going to affect the infrastructure that's already in there? In regards to drainage and stuff. What I would like to know is that how far are we going to go with this study? And to what extent are we going to invest money into it?
So, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Campbell, to fully understand the drainage in the area that we're talking about would include a surface drainage study of the lands directly to the south of that area and to the east. So that yes, the surface drainage would be included in that study. And again, we wouldn't be doing any improvements with that 62. That would be just strictly doing, let's see what we have as in asset management. Let's see what we have. Let's see what we can do to improve it. And here's some costs. I always ask them to phase the costs so that if we are doing commercial development or residential development, we actually have a master plan and we make sure people are developing according to how we want it to look in the future for stormwater.
In the crystal ball, we invest this money. When do we see something done? How many years down the road?
Well, Mr. Mayor, through Councillor Campbell, I think there's some great opportunities right now. They just released yesterday the Canada Infrastructure Program that I'm looking at for a reservoir right now. I think the provincial and federal levels of government are looking at shovel-ready infrastructure projects to stimulate the economy. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see infrastructure grants slowing down at all. They're still being provided. And yeah, again, I don't have a crystal ball. So, but I would say that administrative, if we were to rate infrastructure issues, that area would be at the top of the list right now. Because we have to manually pump every time there's any sort of rain or runoff.
Well, that's just a small area where we're pumping. This is a massive area that needs drainage work done. It's not just a ditch in front of by the highway. It's the whole area. It's the back lanes. It's the streets. It's back in the creek area. That's a big area to undertake. And the drainage system there is zilch. There's nothing. I'm all in favor of investing money into an assessment, but to invest money and then not do nothing for a long period of time, that's not good.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make a comment to Councillor Campbell, the master design and analysis was done in 2014, and I can tell you I use it on a daily basis, and we haven't addressed 10% of the recommendations there. But when you're talking about planning and development and long-term capital planning, those reports are really important and help to make sure that when we develop areas and approve things that we don't want to add problems to existing areas that could use improvement. So they're valuable documents and nothing will change between now and 10 years from now if we didn't touch it, right? So.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Deputy Mayor Judy, and then Councillor Len. Do you have your hand up, Len?
Yeah, and I think we definitely
Yes, I do.
study just so that we understand what the cost is and how big it's going to be before we can decide when we're going to do it. You don't, if it's going to cost $1 million or 20 million, right? Until you have that study done and understand exactly what's all happening there and how you can create things, you're not going to know. We're never going to get it started. Let's put it that way. But if you know, then you can kind of do some long-term planning. So I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Len.
I many years ago, the province did do an assessment on that drainage issue, but they never addressed it. They kind of pushed it on the back shelf because we insisted upon them correcting the problem, but they sort of didn't want to do that because it costs money. But I think it's truly valuable to us to have an assessment, so we have a leg to go forward with to, if we can, at one time afford to do it, we're prepared to do it.
It'd be interesting to see that information. Hopefully the administration has that documentation. So is there any other comments, questions, or concerns on this motion specifically? Okay, call the question then. Those that are not in favor of this motion, please raise your hand or say aye. And looks like everyone's in favor, so the motion is carried. So that's 8.5 FCM grant. 8.6 is a motion that I wanted to bring to the floor and would like to be able to pass a hat over to Deputy Mayor Judy for a moment.
Okay, thank you for that, Mayor Carl. So go ahead and talk about it so we can figure out
Okay,
what we're talking about.
Alberta provincial government is reviewing the continuance of MSI funding, specifically capital funding. As such, we need to be proactive for our community. There's significant grant dollars available from the provincial government for communities to assess their viability into the future. So in light of this, to protect our town's future, I would like to make a motion. And other communities have applied for this funding. Some communities have used it to assess their infrastructure and then not used it to do anything else with. Some communities have used this funding as a way to assess themselves and then maybe look to join other municipalities. We are not making that motion right now. All we're doing is talking about getting grant dollars to investigate for our community. So the motion I'd like to make reads this way, and hopefully it's okay with administration. To direct administration to research funding opportunities to assess the town's ability to fund future capital projects in the absence of provincial funding, and further to direct administrations to apply for this funding when it's researched and found. That is my motion. Is that acceptable, administration?
Thank you for that, Carl.
Mr. Mayor, I'd prefer that you took off the part about apply. I'd be more comfortable coming to council with individual grants. It might be a match. It might be, I just would rather that we took that last part off.
Okay, so we would get something coming back to, do we have to put in the motion that we're bringing back to council, or is that go without saying?
Mr. Mayor, that would go without saying. I'd just be more comfortable that council was informed of what we're applying for, especially if there was any matching funding involved or partnership with another municipality.
Okay, and do we need a time frame on this?
Please don't make it tomorrow, Mr. Mayor.
No, I'm just trying to ask for a realistic kind of date, knowing what you've got on your plate right now.
Mr. Mayor, could I suggest fourth
Friday?
quarter? Could I just suggest?
I didn't quite catch that.
Mr. Mayor, could I suggest fourth quarter?
Of this year?
Yeah, typically the grants come out October, November.
Okay.
So that would be a realistic, because
Okay.
Generally I can tell when the grants, but the provincial and federal government are changing grants and canceling some grants, suspending, redirecting funding. So I would think by fourth quarter, we should have a good look at what's out there and what's available this year.
Okay, so maybe with that friendly amendment, then I'll say administration, the council direct administration to research funding opportunities to assess the town's ability to fund future capital projects in the absence of provincial funding and report back to council in fourth quarter of this year. That would be the motion then.
Sounds good now. Yeah. Okay. So questions, Councillor Len has a question. Go ahead, Len.
I kind of find this motion redundant. At this time, Patty makes application to every grant that's available out there, and anything what comes up available. So why would we need to put this motion in place when it's already happening? I don't think they miss a grant what's available. So why would we have to put that in place? Because we're doing it already.
If you allow CAO Patty to speak, she would probably tell you that these grants we've not applied for before.
So Patty, can you answer any of that? Clarify some of that for us, please?
So Deputy Mayor, through Councillor Falardo, specific grants that council wants me to look for, not a bad motion to have, so I have some direction of what to watch for. I know the priorities of council based on the strategic plan and administration priorities for maintenance. I watch, but yeah, I do apply for a lot of grants and come to council with those opportunities. But if there was something specific council wanted me to look for, I would definitely, like FCM grants, asset management grants. Sometimes you can change the focus, ACP grants, building grants. I go on need, but if there's some council direction that says to me, let's apply for something to look at asset management directly, that's not a bad motion to give me some direction.
Okay, thank you for that, Patty. So any other questions?
I have,
Go ahead.
I have a question. I have a question. I know Patty applies for lots of grants and she seems to be on top of a lot of stuff. I'm just wondering, not putting more things on her plate. However, it's just kind of reaffirming, this motion's kind of just reaffirming what she's already doing. And I don't want her to have to be specifically pointing at one thing brought to council, voted on, motion brought forward and voted on, because I think she's got a pretty good grasp of everything that we need and what's going on. So this motion is more or less just a reaffirming what she's already doing. That's
Okay.
all I got to say.
Councillor Lee. Any other questions? Councillor George? Go ahead, Councillor George Campbell.
I have to echo what Pat and Leonard is saying. I feel Patty does a pretty good job of researching and working our grant system, and putting a timeline on her just adds a little bit more stress to the job, to the workload that she's already got. I think she is quite capable of researching and applying for our needs, and which has always come forward. Carl does have a good how should I say, idea, but I think I shouldn't have to go into a motion that states that you shall do. Kudos to Patty and her crew for doing all the good work that they do. Our town wouldn't be in the shape that it is if it hadn't been for people like them.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Any other questions? I see you thinking, Dan.
I am. I think I'm okay for now.
I'll ask the question. So, Mayor Carl, as you were putting forward this motion, were you thinking of something very specific when you're thinking, or you're just overall thinking of capital funding? Because you talked about viability, you talked about infrastructure, capital funding, and I'm anticipating you're thinking something a little bit more specific that you would like Patty to look for, although she does a good job at looking at everything. If she was more focused a little bit on certain things, I'm thinking you have something in mind.
So given the climate that we're in, with dollars being short and the province reviewing everything because they're short on money, and this has not been something new. For years we've heard about capital funding for MSI and operating funding potentially being removed. And if our community wants to move forward in the future, those dollars are critical to have for our community to stay viable. How viable are we? You do an assessment like this, then you know for sure.
Thank you.
So I guess Sorry, if I may.
Go ahead, Councillor.
What I've been kind of thinking since the beginning of this motion is there's foresight going into this. There's thought, there's planning, and it's kind of reaching towards to make sure that we're going to be okay. And I understand that that Patty does a great job of looking for grants and everything like that. But like she said in her own words, it's fantastic to have some sort of direction, because otherwise she's throwing darts in the dark, right? And if, as council, if we give her proper direction, she knows exactly what we're looking for. She can check that off her list, no problem. And then away she goes, grabbing more grants. Like, I mean, I like this idea.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or concerns? Go ahead, Mayor Carl.
Just to follow up, the other thing to think about is giving administration a lead time to get this completed by, and remembering that next year will be an election, and financial decisions cannot be made once we get within a certain time frame, or major ones you don't want to be doing. Having this completed this year and then being able to apply and getting some direction will help moving forward for not just this council, but the next council.
Very good. Thank you for that. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those not in favor of this motion, please raise your hands. 1 and 2, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. And you can hand back the seat. You can have the chair, Carl.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Great job, Deputy Mayor. Good discussions. 9.1, Council Committee Reports. Looking to have a motion to bring the Council Committee Reports as information.
I move that council receive the council committee reports as information.
Thank you, Councillor Dan. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Dan.
I just have to change mine. September 14th, I attended a Fort Air partnership meeting. That's the only addition to mine that would have to be thrown on there.
Okay, thank you for that. That was due to Councillor George being unable to attend, and you're the alternate, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
No problem.
Hearing no other concerns, any opposed to this motion? And the motion is carried. Thank you. 9.2, Mayor Report. Look for a motion to receive the Mayor Report as information.
The council received the Mayor Report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. There's one thing that I need to add to that. I had signed up for the AOMA event this weekend. I was fortunate to catch an event today that went for an hour and a half approximately. It was a session on diversity and inclusion. There was 3 panelists there that were very challenging, and I think there were 60 municipalities represented during that event. I'm not sure if anybody else from our council was able to attend, but there was some very challenging ideas thrown out. Obviously, for larger municipalities that maybe have deeper pockets, they can do more. But I do think that small communities can do, what we can with the dollars that we might have. Things that they threw out that I wanted to hang on to mention was lots of minorities view consultations as insultations. They don't feel that consultations of the public are useful for them, and they likely will not attend, and you won't get their feedback. The other thing, they presented an onion model that showed the different layers of systemic racism